Our last speaker for today will be Jonathan Rosencrans, who is a Wise Roads meteorologist with the North Dakota Ag Weather Network. He'll be telling us all about the Wise Roads Network and the benefits it brings to the industry here in North Dakota. Please help me welcome Jonathan.
Thanks, Brady. Good afternoon. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me here to the NDPC and Ron and Brady. So weather information and weather plays a key role in the Northern Plains and in North Dakota for our life. It impacts what we talk about, our conversations, and just how we go about every day today. And that's why we have a critical need for accurate weather information. And I bet many of you this morning, first thing you did was look at your phone and see what the weather was today and what the weather will be. And while with what the weather will be, but what you might not know is that Bakken in western North Dakota is one of the most dense weather networks and has the highest amount of weather information in the United States, if not the world. And that's all because of the Wise Roads project. Wise Roads is the weather information system to effectively reduce oil field delays and disruptions. And that was crafted together by Jeff Simon being able to get those words to line up the way they did. And many thanks to him for that. But the Wise Roads project came around from the Western Dakota Energy Association to address a problem. When there's inclement weather, when there's rain, precipitation events, there would be weight restrictions placed in gravel roads across the counties. And this would restrict the movement of industry and how traffic and everything would move. But it wouldn't just be where it rained. You would get calls from Alexander. Someone would call the county, say, the roads are getting tore up by the trucks. We need to shut it down. The county would put a 12-5 restriction on. Well, over in Keene, it's sunny. Roads are dry, but the traffic shut down. So the solution to this project was to provide accurate weather information to the counties, to provide them with accurate weather data, especially precipitation data, so that those road managers can precisely place the closures where they need to protect the assets, those critical assets to keep the oil moving, the industry moving, but also exclude those areas that don't, so that we don't shut down entire counties at one time. So the Wise Roads project started back with the Western Roads Roundtable in 2018 here in Watford City. And there was complaints that the roads were being shut down when they didn't need to be. And that's when this project really started rolling. So what came out of it was the decision to install research-grade weather information or weather stations to provide weather information, building out on the NDON network. The NDON network was the best network at the time that provided real-time information, but even that, there was very few stations in the area. So the idea was to install 50 new weather stations to provide that high-definition data to more accurately place road restrictions. Then this data was to be available to the public, to the counties, to use that data, not just for this project and for the roads, but to have as big of an impact as possible for public safety, for farmers and ranchers, and for anyone in the public who wants to have weather information, have this resource available to them. And then also partnering with LTAP so that they can use this data to do research and learn more on how different weather conditions and precipitation impacts the way gravel roads are built. This project was made possible from grants from the Oil and Gas Research Council. There was a $250,000 matching grant for the weather station equipment and installation costs. And then shortly afterwards, a $60,000 matching grant to bring a meteorologist on board, and that's where I became involved with the project. And it was actually 5 years ago here at the NDPC when it was my first day getting brought in into the Wise Roads project. So once we had the money, we had the idea, we needed to actually start getting those weather stations installed. So the installation process went as shown here. We identified gaps in the existing NDOT network, and there was plenty of them. A lot of times there was 20, 40 miles between the nearest stations. And then working with those gaps and with the road managers at the county level, we identified road segments that were troublesome, were important, and needed to have that information, and filled in those gaps, working with the landowners and then installing the station. Now, this process would sometimes take as little as a couple days to as long as over a year, depending on the location, the landowners, and how it all went. And many thanks to Brent Bogart. He helped and did a lot of the legwork and groundwork for the first 10 stations before I took over for the last 40. Once we had the station installed, we had tons of data. Everything on the left-hand side shows the data collected at each station. Now, it's the typical data you'd expect at a weather station: rain, temperature, humidity, dew point, wind speed and direction, a few extra bare and turf, soil temp, solar radiation used by NDOT to create a more uniform network and have those additional sensors for other members of the public in different industries. But also at the bottom, we had a camera. Every station had a camera. PTZ would be able to be controlled remotely to look at the road conditions, the weather conditions, and see what the real-time weather is in that location, sitting in the office at the county. We also had some additional data collected, winter precipitation, to be able to measure how much moisture was in the snowfall. And also some soil temperature and moisture probes, frost depth down to 7 feet, and we'll go over the road probes here shortly. Now, 50 stations is a lot of data, a lot of stations close, and we put in these weather stations spacing them about every 8 to 10 miles, but at that level, temperature really doesn't vary that much. Wind speed doesn't vary that much. So we decided to switch over and focus on rain gauge stations, focusing solely on precipitation, the main and most important variable that we were looking for. 13 of these weather stations were rain gauge only sites, and 8 of those were located on or immediately adjacent to oil well pads and connected to AC power. With that, we could have gauges that can measure winter precipitation, especially in the shoulder seasons, early spring, late fall, the slush on the road, be able to measure the moisture content in that. Also, an IR camera that could operate 24/7. This is a huge gain over the standard cameras that ran on solar power, could run 24/7, and the counties could use it in the winter during the early in the morning, see what roads need to be plowed, is the road icy, what are the weather conditions before the sun comes up. And we had great industry cooperation with this project. These companies all hosted stations and provided AC power, and want to thank them all: Continental, Petro Hunt, Cord, Hess, Marathon, and ConocoPhillips. So with that, we had 50 stations installed. And as I said, we didn't start out with very many stations, and here's the map comparing spring of 2019 and the genesis of the project to summer 2024 now. The big 4 counties only had 8 weather stations in total. And again, this is NDOT, which had the best weather network at the time. Mackenzie County itself had 1 weather station here in Watford City at the golf course. 2,800 square miles, and there was 1 weather station. Now in Mackenzie County, there's 16 weather stations, spaced again every 8 to 10 miles apart. And in the big 4 counties, 49 weather stations, providing that dense weather network, weather information required to keep industry moving and provide that information within the heart of the Bakken. So the road temperature and moisture probes. These were installed at 4 locations with the help and assistance of the counties and NDLTAB. There was 4 probes installed at each site, and these were installed in the gravel road adjacent to the weather station. At 6 to 8 inches, or just under the float, 24, 48, and 72 inches. Each of those probes measures the temperature and the volumetric water content at that level. And these are being able to be used to monitor frost depth and the moisture infiltration within the road. And these are installed, one per county, and those were at the Epping, Medicine Hole, Rat Lake, and Banks locations. So for example, here's McKenzie County frost law, 2023. And the dark line is the shallow probe at 8 inches, the blue, 2 feet, the orange, 4 feet, and the red line, 6 feet. Now, 8 inches down, even just a sunny day, if it's cold out, you see the diurnal pattern going up and down every single day. But now looking up and bringing up bars where the frost law was imposed, you see the first line when frost law started coincides with where the 2-foot temperature started to increase and when the road would start to get soft. Frost law then continued on till the 10th of May, or just a few days after the 6-foot probe finally got over freezing, and by just a couple days. Now, this is the first project in the United States that actually installed these types of probes in a gravel road network. And this is the first data of its kind to be able to actually look at how real-time have an idea of where the frost is in the road and how the frost is coming out of the road to better implement frost law into the future. I also want to talk shortly about the U.S. Army Corps, the Missouri River Basin Project, because this impacts everywhere in the green shaded area, which has a huge impact for the Bakken in western North Dakota. So this project was a 5-state, 7-year project impacting the entire upper Missouri River Basin north of Sioux City. And this project is all around getting more data from winter precipitation, soil moisture, and snowpack. So that fits in directly with WISE Roads and its goals. So within that green area, the green shaded area, every 500 square miles, there's a winter precipitation gauge getting put in. And this is year 4 out of a 5-year project in North Dakota specifically. So that has upgraded 10 WISE Road stations and 60 NDON stations within that area, providing additional information to the counties and to the road managers and to the public as a whole. Now we had a ton of data, as I said, ton of data being collected, so we needed to get that out. So we have wiseroadsnd.com. That was launched in 2020, and that has current and yesterday's weather information maps as shown, highlighting the Bakken region. There's also station photos. Every 10 minutes, the cameras on all the stations takes a snapshot and uploads it to be able to see what the real-time conditions are right there easily on a web page. It also has links under the counties tab to dashboards for every single station, both for weather data and soil data if it has soil data, as well as live road probe information at those 4 sites. Now, WISE Roads project partnered between the Western Dakota Energy Association and NDON. So NDON handles all the weather information, and as such, all this information is available at NDON as well, the North Dakota Agriculture Weather Network. So at those resources, you can also see real-time data, historical data, and crop and disease data, all tied in from the Bakken area, these WISE Road sites, at NDON at large. And this data is available at ndon.org, ndon.info, as well as the NDON Inversion app available on Apple and Android. So with this project, I worked with Matt Johnson and Ed Ryan with the Western liaisons with LTAP. And through their connections, I was able to work with NDDOT and get that information, the weather information from WISE Roads, the current information, onto the road condition map as well. If you look on the weather tab on the bottom, there's an NDON or Ag Weather Network, which has all the weather information from WISE Roads and NDON as a whole brought together on the NDDOT map. So the counties now have all this availability, the websites to look at the tools and then the data, but they also have a few additional tools available to them. Rainfall notifications, they can have customized at different levels, whatever they want, ½ inch, ¼ inch, an inch. They'll get a notification pushed to their phone, text message or an email, and they don't even have to be paying attention, seeking the information. They can be in a meeting, they can be in their office, and they'll get a notification, and they know that that station has had that much precipitation and they need to take a look. They also have access to the cameras. They can live stream those cameras, control them, zoom into the roads. What does it look like? Is there ice on the road? Do we need to plow the road? Do we need to have a weight restriction? So these tools allow the counties to have a closer look and have that information right at their fingertips without focusing on it. And with that, we were able to narrow the scope. Counties, 5 counties, the big 4 plus Divide County, all created zones, subzones, that they could then set those restrictions on a sub-county basis. The entire goal of the project. Instead of closing down or restricting the entire county down to 12.5, you can choose 1 or 2 zones and then bring them back in different time periods. The message at the bottom was an event where Williams County, Zone 1, was never restricted. This message was removing the restriction from Zone 2 and 3, and Zones 4, 5, and 6 were still remaining at 20,000 GVW. So using these zones, counties can better apply these road restrictions, and we can keep as much of the industry moving as possible. And another unintended goal of the project was creating eastern kingbird habitat. We didn't anticipate this, but apparently our rain gauges were perfect size for the nesting of them. And we were able to set up the cameras. They take snapshots every 10 minutes, and we catch some incredible photos, including this one that was at Grenora in Divide County. Now we have backup rain gauges for this reason, and this very rarely impacts the data, but it shows some of the incredible things you can catch on those cameras when you have them sitting out. So thank you for having me here. This is my contact information. If you have any questions about Wise Roads, about the data, or about NDON, please give me an email, get in contact with me, and thank you for having me here.